Today, in the post-apocalyptic wasteland that is Kenshi, I play as a sentient insect, enslaved by religious fanatics who shout scripture at me while I mine rocks. What these heavily armored preachers don't know is that I am actually allowing myself to remain enslaved in order to take advantage of the robust public healthcare system afforded to slaves. If this sounds like the nonsensical ravings of a madman, that's because it is, but also because this is what Kenshi is all about. In case you are unfamiliar, Kenshi is a 2018 RPG developed by one-man goblin hybrid over the course of a decade. And if my intro blurb didn't already cue you into this, it is a strange game. It simultaneously has some of the most hideous graphics I have ever seen, while also frequently being stunningly gorgeous. It has many game mechanics that are both wildly frustrating and outdated, while also feeling groundbreaking and completely unique. The world building sometimes feels like if you asked ChatGPT what Mad Max would be like if it was written by a child and directed by a monkey. But at other times, it is so brilliant you'll catch yourself reading entire lore books instead of actually playing the game. My goals for this Kenshi playthrough are as follows. 1. Escape from rebirth. 2. Overcome the weakness of flesh and fuse my earthly form with
dystopian machinery.
3. Create an army to destroy the fantasy racists with my own fantasy racism. To succeed in my goals, I would need a character of incalculable strength and wisdom, a futuristic Nietzschean Ubermensch. So this is John, the Hive Worker Drone. Hive Worker Drones are probably the worst race in Kenshi. Being expendable workers, born to labor for the good of their hive, they know only obedience. Bewildered by their newfound freedom and loss of predetermined purpose, they wander lost and seek meaning, but usually just find death or exploitation. They also have very frail limbs that are easily forcibly removed by the untold horrors of Kenshi. As you'll see later in the series, however, this can be used to great benefit, and because I have to make a second character for the slave start, meet John's twin brother, John, but without the H. He is a Hive soldier drone who will definitely be with us throughout the entire series and definitely won't be used as a distraction in order to secure John with an H's freedom. Starting out in Kenshi, you are level 1 at every skill. This means that anyone you fight will beat you senseless. As an example, immediately after unpausing the game, both me and John were savagely beaten by our captors. However, our captors, being the savvy slave masters that they are, immediately began to tend to our wounds. While the uninitiated may think that this is a bad start to a run, being savagely beaten would level my toughness skill, making future savage beatings far less savage, until eventually they are not even beatings at all. But we are not there yet, and I immediately fell unconscious from my wounds. I was also briefly tied to a pole for my transgressions, before being untied and told to worship Okran more and everything would be fine. My captors are members of the Holy Nation. They worship Okran and hate all races that aren't humans, but especially robots, who were kind of responsible for the end of the world. I don't know, the lore in this game is strange. They also hate the robot devil Narco. The particularly observant among you may have picked up that Narco is just Okran backwards. Anyways, while I wait for my wounds to heal, I whack rocks for my Imperial overlords. Unfortunately, however, they did not completely treat my wounds, and as a result, I lose functioning in my legs. To remedy this, I stop my current task of being an obedient slave, and allow them to once again savagely beat me. This time, however, they fully bandage my wounds, and I am locked in a cage. While I toil away in a cage, it seems like John without the H is getting along just fine. Perhaps in the end, he would choose, by his own free will, to remain in rebirth. For some, being locked inside a cage would make them feel trapped. For a resourceful John like myself, it is an opportunity. I spend the rest of the day picking the locks to my shackles and cage, exiting the cage so that the guards can see me and reshackle me, Rinse and repeat for a whole day, and I get my lockpicking all the way to level 13. Later in the day, I spend a brief stint on the Pole of Disobedience before going back to my slave duties. However, once I am all alone, I hobble back and forth to grind out some athletics levels. Eventually, though, I am caught, and you guessed it, savagely beaten, bandaged, and locked in a cage. Once night falls, on our most holy pit, I get to work training my stealth skills. By simply sneaking back and forth for most of the night, I massively increase my ability to sneak. This would come in handy for later mischief. However, as I'm sneaking, the sun rises and shines its light on my misdeeds, earning me yet another savage beating. Where you might see soldiers beating a defenseless bugman, all I see is more toughness XP. During the next day, I find a quiet area to sneak off to and begin my rocky training montage. This consists of running back and forth over and over again in order to gain athletics XP. While it's not the most riveting gameplay, I get my athletics all the way to level 20. At night, I further hone my ninja bug abilities before beginning the next part of my training: theft. I attempt to steal a glorious pair of Holy Nation sneakers off a soldier while he is sleeping, but am caught in the process. As a reward, I am made a cripple so that I might drag my body along the glorious ground that Okran has created. I once again start a fight I know I cannot win, so that I will be given emergency care. With my left leg at a debilitating -92, I would be crippled for a long time, and would have to play Dune Sandworm Simulator for the rest of the day. After my leg was fully healed, I could begin the next part of my grand plan. I waited until nightfall and snuck over to the other prisoners that were strapped to the poles. Once there, I attempted to stealth KO them in order to level my assassination skills. Later that night, I do get a little full of myself and try to steal from the guard barracks. I am quickly given experimental plastic surgery and locked in a cage. Thanks for the free lockpicking XP, suckers. I spend the night breaking out of my cage, attempting to knock out a guard, and then using forbidden bug magic to teleport back into my cage before they can damage my frail carapace. I spend the next day practicing a combination of lockpicking, thievery, assassination, and stealth. I also rob a guard of his armor and put a pair of my shackles onto him. The next morning, the guards mistake him for a lowly slave and imprison him. Now, my stats are starting to look pretty good. While I don't know anything about how to actually fight, I'm quick and pretty sneaky. My escape was nearing. I ate some food I had stolen earlier to get rid of the stat penalties associated with starvation. For my escape, I would need help from an old friend, John without the H. H-less John was currently being held in a cage on the other side of Rebirth. After sneaking over to him and using my lockpicking skill to unlock the cage, we were ready to escape. Me and John could feel that the end of our enslavement was near. Soon, we would both be free bugs. I had my main John sneak close to the guards at the front of the gate, while H-less John stood back a little ways as a lookout. How were we going to escape? There were so many guards at the front gate, all with significantly higher combat skills than us lowly Johns. While I was pondering this, in a moment of pure heroism, of his own free will, and definitely not because I right-clicked and commanded him to, H-less John charged in, aggroing all of the guards and luring them back further into Rebirth. I couldn't believe it. He was sacrificing his own freedom so that I may escape. Quickly, I snuck past the guards and made a break for it. As I ran out into open country, I looked back to see that H-less John was being savagely beaten and recaged. His sacrifice would not be forgotten, and it would be avenged. A little while longer, and I was out of Rebirth and into Okran's Pride. While I had escaped Rebirth, I was by no means safe. Now, I was deep in the Holy Nation's territory. Here, if I was caught, they would not give me free healthcare. They would simply kill me. Without H-less John, I was truly alone in the world of Kenshi. To the north, cannibals roamed freely. To the east lie late-stage capitalism incarnate, where the pocket-watching guards may just kill me for being too poor. To the south was the Shek Kingdom, who value only martial strength, but with no combat proficiency to my name, that didn't sound much nicer. Where was a John without his H-less John to go?